Bill Maher had Cornel West on his show this weekend, and he spoke about the police basically getting away with killing unarmed black men. They used the example of Terrence Crutcher. We've covered his case before. Well, the officer got off, even though it was clear, like, okay, no threat, the guy wasn't armed, and you just killed him because for a split second you were like, oh, I think I may be scared or something, die. So in the midst of this conversation where Maher's talking about this, look at this incredibly cheap point that he tries to get away with and how this turns into a debate about Hillary Clinton.
I know this is a matter close to your heart. There was an acquittal this week of a police officer, Betty Jo Shelby from Tulsa. She shot Terrence Crutcher, a unarmed black man. She said she feared for her life. And then in South Carolina, Michael Slager shot Walter Scott in the back, running away, and that was a mistrial. And this argument that the cops get away with, I was fearful that they might do something erratic. I thought when you went into the police department, you understood that there was some danger in this job. I don't know where they got this idea that if I fear at all, I am allowed to shoot you. But that seems what's happening. And by the way, Trump is all for it, and Hillary Clinton wouldn't have been. So, as someone who said they were equally awful, I'd like...
I didn't say equally awful.
Yes, you did.
I said one was a disaster, another was a catastrophe.
Exactly my point.
But
How
a
is that
disaster is better than a catastrophe.
Well, that point was lost.
Stop it. But let's keep the focus where it belongs. The police have yet to go to jail when they end up in committing violence and murdering these young black brothers and sisters.
Right.
And the problem is we want a fair trial for them, but there's a chronic racism that's shot through and over again, but it's just not the police. Same is true with Wall Street. No Wall Street executives go to jail either. Rule of law comes down hard on the poor, and the well-to-do get off, or the police get off because they're protecting the property.
But Hillary's first speech was about mass
Hillary gave speeches about all kind of stuff, but it didn't have a whole lot of integrity in it, though, brother.
That's such bullshit.
That's not bullshit at all.
Really?
Look how they treated Bernie Sanders, man. They concerned about the Russians. Look how they treated Bernie Sanders. Bernie would have won if he had a chance. He would have won if he had a chance. Don't defend Hillary. Hillary can't even take responsibility for the fact that she lost the election.
Look what you did to him.
On everybody but her.
But he's so wrong.
Don't trot Hillary out on me now, bro.
He's so wrong.
Oh, no.
He's so wrong.
She's better than Trump, but don't lie about the sister.
She's better than Trump. That's all I'm saying. A lot better than Trump in so many ways. And just on this,
that doesn't take too much. That doesn't take too much. Who is it better than Trump?
That's not an answer. It's glib. It's beneath you. For someone who's such an intellectual, that answer is beneath you.
Let me tell you why it's not. It's precisely because when I asked you, would you vote for Donald Trump over David Duke, you said you wouldn't vote for either one. Remember I told you?
Hillary is not David Duke.
No, but it's this. If you're talking about Wall Street, if you're talking about militarism, if you're talking about dealing with folk in Honduras,
she's light years better than him about all of them.
All of those issues, Hillary is unacceptable.
No, she is not unacceptable.
Yes, she was.
Why are we still arguing the last election? We got stuff going forward.
Because they haven't learned the lesson that we need to win the next election.
No.
That's why.
No, Bill, you haven't learned the lesson for the next election. The lesson is you can't pick a corporatist, you can't pick a neoliberal, you can't pick a so-called centrist, because people are not going to fall in line and vote for them. You can't pull the wool over their eyes anymore and say, hey, slightly less shitty is good enough. People say, fuck you with your lesser evilism. So he is 100% wrong, and that's just an argument that's pure, unadulterated projection. You haven't learned the lesson of the last election. No, you haven't. What's the lesson, Bill? What's the lesson? The lesson is you run a corporatist, you run a neoliberal, and it doesn't matter how much you go out there and try to pretend and act like, no, seriously, they're way better than the other person. when people know that they're not that much better, like, okay, she's better. Granted, Cornel West makes that point. I make that point. But just a little bit better than fucking Donald Trump doesn't mean anything to people. You're not inspiring them. You're not saying, hey, you get to actually have a brighter future as opposed to the status quo and business as usual. And guess what? With Donald Trump, people were rolling the dice because they thought, hey, a lot of his rhetoric is anti-establishment. He seems like he's going to shake shit up and really change shit. He is speaking anti-Wall Street. He is speaking about infrastructure. He is against TPP. He's not the status quo candidate. He seems like a populist candidate. Now, granted, a lot of the shit he said was xenophobic and bigoted. A lot of people overlooked that because they thought, fuck, man, I think he'll keep my job here and Hillary's going to outsource it. So you're not coming to grips with the actual lessons of the election. You're pretending like, no, the establishment and the status quo has got to be good enough and you have to fall in line. No, the real lesson is the opposite of that. Don't run a status quo establishment candidate. Run a real progressive. Run a real liberal. And Bill Maher never has anything to say about the goddamn DNC and how it's proven that they tipped the scales against Bernie Sanders from day one. There are emails from Hillary Clinton's campaign where they say, hey, let's prop up Donald Trump on the side of the Republicans because he's the Pied Piper candidate. We act like he's a serious candidate, then we get him in the general election, and then we obviously beat him. I mean, he's Donald Trump. What a joke he is. We'll clearly beat him. So they pushed Donald Trump on us because they thought he was beatable. Whoops. And they tried to keep down and bias the system and the process against Bernie Sanders because they also thought, well, there's no way he'd be able to beat Donald Trump. They were wrong about literally everything. And then your dumbass goes out there and carries water for them and takes away the exact incorrect lessons. You should be screaming at the DNC and saying, hey, why did you try to change voting times in districts that were pro-Bernie Sanders? Why did you try to hide the debates? You know, that seems like a weird thing to do. Why did you try to atheist shame Bill, Mr. Atheist? Atheists shame Bernie Sanders in the Midwest to try to score cheap political points so that Hillary wins. Did you not read any of these emails? Furthermore, who made Hillary Clinton say, well, I think there should be, you should have public positions and private positions when you're a politician. So have positions that you really believe that for you and your donors, and then things you say in public that you don't believe, but hey, you got to pull the wool over the eyes of the sheep. Did anybody make her say that? Did anybody make her say, I want totally free and open trade borders, which is like TPP on steroids? Did anybody make her say, like she did in speeches, there's this real bigotry and oppression against the rich in America today? Who made her say that, Bill? She said that. What's hilarious is the people love to say, Russia. That's the reason she lost the election. Hold on. What's the argument that Russia released? What's the point against Russia? Oh, we think they maybe gave the DNC emails to WikiLeaks and then that's how they got out. So your argument is Russia made it so that we could read Hillary Clinton's own words and therefore we're going to blame Russia. Why would you not blame Hillary Clinton and her own words? Because that's what we allegedly got from Russia, what Hillary said. But you have nothing to say about Hillary Clinton and her own fault. Like 25% of her ads were based on policy, and you're going to turn around and blame other people? She ran the worst campaign in political history. She lost to Donald Trump, a guy who said, I'd grab him by the pussy, I don't even wait. A guy who said, we have to take out their families, killing civilians overseas. You're going to blame anybody but Hillary Clinton? How big of a joke are you, Bill Maher? You're trying, with every fiber of your being, you're trying to not learn the real lessons. The real lessons are, don't rig the election against the actual progressive or liberal. Don't prop up the corporatist. Don't assume these crazy faux populists on the right can't win. Donald Trump beat Hillary Clinton. Let's dig a little deeper here because there was another part that really got under my skin, which is he accuses Cornel West of, that point is glib, that point is beneath you. Bill, you know what a glib point is? You're talking about police killing an unarmed black man and then saying Hillary's against it, Trump is for it. What would Hillary have done? What could Hillary have done about that? What could Hillary have done? What's she going to do? There's literally no policy that the president could come up with would take somebody who just got off for doing that and put him in jail. That wouldn't happen. So what do you mean? So, yeah, Hillary's against it, Trump is for it. And then, how would we... I'm waiting for... So what does that mean? That doesn't mean anything. That is a cheap, glib point. Because you're bringing it up as if it's like, case closed, case closed. Obviously, Cornel West is wrong when he says they're both evil and one is a lesser evil. No, he's not wrong. He's 100% correct. And then notice, Cornel West brings up, when I asked you David Duke or Donald Trump, you said I wouldn't vote for either. And then he goes, well, look, Hillary's not David Duke. True. But what does Cornel say? He goes, well, when you talk about Wall Street policy, when you talk about militarism, when you talk about Honduras, when you talk about Palestine, when you talk about Syria, yeah, on those issues, she's just as bad. Again, look at the record. Don't take my word for it. You know, Wall Street, her husband signed away Glass-Steagall with the Gramm-Leach-Bliley Act. She supported it. She supported NAFTA. She supported TPP. You know, you go down the list. Her big claim to fame on being tough on Wall Street is literally, I went down there and wagged my finger at them and said, stop it. What? So you're in favor of all the deregulation and all the outsourcing, but you say, I told them to stop it. So you're just as bad on Wall Street. Funding from Goldman Sachs, everybody knows that. And again, I'm not saying Trump is good on this stuff. We know he's just as bad if you look at what he's doing in office now, appointing Goldman Sachs and whatnot. But she's just as bad on Wall Street. Militarism, Bill, she's orchestrated an intervention in Libya, for intervention in Syria. She voted for the Iraq War, voted for the Patriot Act. You can't make the claim. No, it's because Bill's response is, and this is the dumbest of all the points, she's better on all of them. That's what he said. She's better on all of it. He just gave you specific examples, specific, crystal clear examples of where they are equally as bad. And yes, on those issues, to a citizen, a civilian in Iraq who was killed in the Iraq War, she's just as bad. That person's dead because of the war that she voted for. So what Bill ends up doing is he starts the argument by saying, yes, okay, so she's a lesser evil. By the end of it, the argument is she's good, he's bad. And, quote, she's better than him on all of it. On all of that, she's better. Which is it, Bill? Is it lesser evil? And if it's lesser evil, then why don't you understand that the takeaway from the election is people won't vote for the lesser evil? Put good on the ballot, Bernie Sanders. An actual progressive. So the lesson's right in front of you, and you don't take the lesson, and instead you do disgusting, shitty, idiotic, low-level Hillary apologetics. It doesn't work like that, Bill. You don't get to shame the voters. It's just shut up and vote for the slightly less shitty one. Or how about they don't rig the primary and prop up the corporate shitty one, and then we would have won, like Cornel West said. All the polls indicate that. Now you say, well, no, the polls indicated Hillary would beat Trump too. The polls were much closer with Hillary and Trump. And by the way, it was right within the margin of error. She won the popular vote by 3 million, but she lost the Electoral College. All the polls with Bernie, he wins the popular vote and the Electoral College. That's why Bernie would have won is such a big thing. So they have the blame exactly incorrect. Instead of punching left, Bill, you should be punching right to the corporate Democrats, the so-called centrist Democrats, and the neoliberals and the establishment who are so convinced that their vision was the one that could easily defeat Donald Trump. Well, who's right about that? So focus your ire and your anger against the DNC, against Debbie Wasserman Schultz, against Hillary Clinton, against people like Joe Manchin, against Barack Obama, and that version of the Democratic Party, because obviously it doesn't get the fucking job done, but instead you're going after people who have this solution. Well done, Bill.